series of webinars to support the act4goa.com ideas platform that you'll hear about a little bit later. Just to give you an overview of the format that we'll be using today. So we're going to have around a 40-minute discussion with panelists, and then we're going to open up to the floor to audience questions. And then for those of you who want to share your ideas, we're also going to be having a sort of group interaction, small group discussions in breakout rooms at the end, so after 5 o'clock. So the main core webinar between 4 and 5, and then after that, some group discussions. So thank you. So just as a way of introduction, my name is Joanna Perez. My work in the world is I support effective stakeholder collaboration through different shared leadership approaches, and I train other people how to do that. So on the one hand, I'm really happy to be here as a moderator, as someone who's training a new vocation and profession, which is collaborative leadership, to be here sort of exploring with you all around learning and skills development in Goa. Also in Goa, I have founded circlevalas.net and act4goa.org, which are participatory platforms to support public participation in creating a new future for Goa. So it's really great to be here as part of the Ideas for Goa platform and program. So before we jump in, I'd just like to have some housekeeping rules. So all the attendees, I'm afraid you're on mute, you can't join in, but you do have a Q&A button, and you're encouraged at any point to put your questions and answers, your questions into that session, into the box, and then those will be picked up later. The panelists, you're also muted, just to keep clarity on the line. And then when you have something to say, please unmute yourself and put your hand up. And also, I'm in the interest of keeping to time and making sure that everybody gets to speak, I may sort of ask you to sort of move it along if you're having a long response, so that we can make sure we get everybody's perspectives in. So just to set the context for this webinar. So I think we're probably all aware, but before COVID-19 pandemic hit, there was a sense that actually a lot of our systems needed updating. Our social and economic and systems needed updating to actually a more 21st century model, in line with understanding that we need to factor in sustainability, climate change, declining resources into the way that we live, that we need to address the widening gap between rich and poor, that we need to create space and opportunities for well-being for people, wildlife, and natural systems. That in short, we had a lot to do in terms of changing our systems. And particularly, not just globally, but also in Goa, there was work to be done. And then, of course, the pandemic hit, and the resultant lockdown has ground all the systems to a halt. And so now we find ourselves in this moment of pause. And so it's a great opportunity to just stop, take a breath, and just reflect a little, and take the time to really think through what would more conscious and wise action be? How do our systems actually need to change when we actually start again? And what do we need to start? And where do we need to focus our attention and resources? So it's part of this pause that we're in now. And Ideas for Goa was started very much out of this need and this recognition that this was the moment to reimagine Goa 2.0. And it's in this spirit that we're here today. And Act for Goa is a platform free of cost, allows anyone to contribute ideas and vote on other people's ideas. So we'll talk more about that later. So with me on the panel today are my 5 esteemed panelists. They've got their names there, so you can see their faces as I introduce them to you. So we've got Nandita Deshasle, who has been involved in education for over 20 years, who's designed and implemented experiential learning curriculums for more than 1,000 students from over 65 nations, and created partnerships with at least 30 NGOs to enable this learning. She's a co-founder of Furthering Education, a consultancy firm, and the Learning Center, an alternative to schooling, and is actively engaged in self-learning with her son. Welcome, Nandita. We have Nilesh Borde, who's a professor at the Goa Business School in Goa University and is currently the program director for the MBA course. He has teaching experience of more than 20 years with a PhD in finance and has more than 20 research papers in national and international index journals. He's also a member of the Goa Economic Revival Committee set up by Goa government. Welcome, Nilesh. We also have Shantanu Shiore, who's an advertising and media industry veteran with an experience of 3.5 decades. A few of his best remembered campaigns are Thumbs Up, Taste the Thunder with Salman Khan, Garden Vareli with Aishwarya Rai, and in 2013, Shantanu set up the One School Goa, a premium visual communication school teaching photography and filmmaking. And the school is now expanding into a fully fledged design school. Welcome, Shantanu. We also have with us today Shilpa Mehta, who's a TV and radio broadcast journalist from London. She has anchored numerous adventure travel programs and documentaries for the BBC, Channel 4 and the Discovery Channel. She moved to Goa when her daughter was young and founded Paradise Primary School in South Goa for her, her daughter, and for all the children in that community, and then moved to North Goa and founded Paradise School Aldona, which is now the world's first sole Cambridge school and is accredited from grades 1 to 12. And shortly and hopefully, we will have Umaji Chogle joining us too, who's the director of Chogle and Company PBT, who has a broad experience in education. So a warm welcome to all of you, and thank you all for coming. I'd love to start today's discussion really by opening it up to get a sense from you each in terms of what opportunities do you feel this crisis has brought and is bringing for education skills, learning and knowledge? So I'm just going to go around in the order of my screen now. So Shilpa, would you like to start?
Sure. Thank you so much. I just want to say a big congratulations to Ideas for Goa. I think it's a brilliant platform. It's just seize the moment, and this is a great discussion to be having. So thank you, everyone. You know, the crisis did initiate a big change at Paradise, but something that we'd always anticipated, because we are in favor of a digital approach. We do see the internet as an educational resource, and we use it in that way in our school using SOL and other methods. So when the crisis hit, to move the school online wasn't so much of a challenge for our secondary kids. Yes, a bit more for our primary children because they don't have their own devices and they're more reliant on their parents. So there were slightly different dynamics operating. When we come out of this crisis, I can see that there will probably be a need for maybe a blended learning platform where some kids are learning online, you know, part of their curriculum and part of their curriculum at school. So these things, I feel that they're all in flux. I haven't really settled my mind in any one place there. I'm just staying open to the possibilities. But the thing that has really excited me, and I feel blows the game wide open, is that Cambridge has cancelled its exams this year. So my daughter, who's 16, who I set up all these schools for, her final round of exams in June have been cancelled. And now we've switched to an assessment-based system, which has now opened up a series of questions between us and Cambridge about, well, if we can assess children without exams, maybe there's another opportunity here for learning, because exams, I feel, are part of a remnant of a system which is based on rote learning and memorization, which is redundant. You know, it is defunct in the modern day when you have the internet and you have all the world's information available at the push of a button. So what's the point in remembering it? It opens up so many possibilities as well to vocational learning, online learning, non-traditional pathways to university that don't require exams, and also internships. You know, why shouldn't you come to school? School should be for learning and for inspiration. And the reason why it gets jammed, and as it does at Paradise, is because of the exam system, right? So we have this wonderful, exciting learning platform, but then the minute we get to the IGCSEs, everything narrows and we have to get through the eye of a needle. So if that is removed and we can assess more broadly across, you know, many different ways, then I think the opportunities for children to really learn something genuinely for themselves really opens up. So that's the thing that I'm focusing on at the moment and waiting, you know, with bated breath.
Thank you, Shilpa. Shantanu?
Can you hear me? Yeah, okay, there we are. Yeah, well, what it has done importantly for my observation on what's happening over here, and it's been spoken about over various medium, I think that Goa otherwise was focused only on mining and tourism, which is not the best thing to do, is what I felt. And for the last 7 years, since we've started here, in my various conversations with Mr. Manohar Parrikar, our ex-CM, we had floated the idea of Goa should become the hub or the capital of creative education. In the beginning, he didn't decipher what I was trying to say, but as we went along and we met a couple of times, he thought it was a great idea and he said, let's do it. What do you want? Do you need land? So I said, no, let the government not step into setting this up, but you just make sure that you help getting all the things like permissions and all. They started on a good note, but it's somewhere along the line, it's in a frozen zone. Hi.
Sorry, I'm.
Yeah, no,
4 o'clock. I thought 4 o'clock was like 4:15.
No problem. We're just going around, Umaji, and hearing from each of the panelists in turn, just what opportunities do you feel this crisis is opening up for learning, knowledge, and skill development in Goa? So, Shantanu, yes.
Yeah. So that's what I feel now. I think people will start taking it seriously. And what I mean by people is there are two aspects. That's government and bureaucrats. They need to step up their game to get people like us. Shilpa is a private setup. Mine is a private setup. But we needed some kind of support, not monetary, not land, but just get clearances quickly instead of making us run around and dance around. So I think that will happen now, hopefully, that the Goa bureaucrats and the government will wake up and understand that this is a great possibility. Now, let me tell you what can happen. See, a tourist comes in here for a 6-day or 15-day period. He's committed only for that much time in a year. Whereas students are committed for at least 3 years to 4 years in our case, and probably in Shilpa's case, maybe for 10 years, they're committed here. Now that really helps the ecosystem, and I think that realization has started coming up. And in the meantime, while we were also in the lockdown, a lot of our students were scattered all over the country. They had gone out on shoots and some were stuck here. What we decided to do is we had launched on the 1st of Jan our online program, because that's what we've been working on for the last 6-8 months. So we started by, we launched a competition, an online photography competition with awards to be given away. And that's become very attractive. The numbers are growing every week. We are only in our 3rd week, and the 4th week presentations will start by the weekend. Now, I know that what's happened is the feedback that we're getting from people from all over the world. There's some gentleman who's a shippy. He's from Goa, but he's stuck somewhere in the mid-seas. And he keeps sending his entries in, which is such a wonderful thing, because what's happening is now people from all over the world are connecting up into a competition we're running out of Goa. So this is a great starting point, I feel, for everyone to realize that Goa might be remote by a lot of standards, not as populated, heavily populated like Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore, and other places. And you've seen what's happening there. Whereas we're sitting safe. So maybe this will be a starting point for education and establishment, like other establishments related to education, probably speeding up.
Wonderful. Thank you, Shantanu. Nandita.
Thank you, and it was absolutely amazing to hear both of you, Shilpa and Shantanu. So what I run is a space called the Learning Center, which is slightly different in the sense we are an education space. We're not really a school. So we have our own curriculum, so that really gives us a lot of flexibility in what we want to do and how we do it. So we don't have exams. So we were quite free of having to do that. And anyway, more on that later. But what I really feel with regards to opportunities to education and skills is that we can really turn it around on its head and look at contextual knowledge building. I mean, so many of our curriculums look at what's happening in the Amazon, what's happening in the Nile, what's happening everywhere, but what's happening here. So I think this is really brought to the fore that we need to build local context. If a child doesn't know where she or he belongs to, what is his natural surrounding or the environment or the economy, there is no point in talking about the global. So I think we need to really begin grassroots. One of the things we have all our children do is have their own little plot of land which they work on. And when this whole thing happened and they shut down, I had parents telling me that we didn't know what to do to grow things, but our children did. I mean, it's just a start where you look at, okay, where are you and what is around you and how do you build from there? So that was one. And the second thing that was a huge learning for me, especially through TLC and from the volunteer work we've been doing, is that the whole pyramid structure of hierarchy can actually be turned on its head. And you can completely not have that structure and look at different ways of leadership. It does not require one person to lead all the time. It depends on what abilities you have at that moment, which makes you a leader. And it might be when the moment changes, somebody else steps in and you should be okay with that. So this changing almost musical chairs is something that I think is also vitally important in today's changing times. I mean, when this whole thing happened, the number of people who came out and took ownership and took leadership were people who otherwise were doing very different things or maybe not in leadership roles, but who took on those roles. So to me, these two were our key learning things, which I would like to work with children, is to build contextual knowledge and to be okay with sharing leadership roles at different times.
Thank you.
These are two things I really look at.
Thanks, Nandita. Nilesh, you're just on mute, yeah. Oh, you're on mute. Sorry, Nilesh. Could you unmute yourself? Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Hi. Good evening. So I'm a bit confused. So when I actually got this invite to be a part of this webinar, I actually gave it a lot of thought as to what am I actually going to speak on, or what is this whole webinar about. So is education really going to change? I don't know. I'm not too sure about that. So what are we really talking about? When we compare this to this concept called COVID crisis, what are we really talking about? We are talking about the method of delivering your content. You're talking about method of holding an examination. You're talking about how the lectures would be delivered. But then, this whole concept of student-centered learning that needs to be talked about is something that was happening for quite some time, but not really being understood by a lot of people. So this COVID-19 probably would just give us an opportunity to lay back, sit down and think about what actually is wrong with our educational system. So to give you a little insight into this, India probably still follows this archaic British model of education, who devised or who designed Indian educational system because they wanted clerks. So they wanted people who would follow orders and didn't want people who would use their own brains. And therefore, if you notice, most of the successful businessmen, so to say, are people who have dropped out from schools and not really people who completed their full education. So I think there's something wrong with the basic crux of the education. And we find this in society too. We all talk about 4 pillars of society, namely judiciary, media, executives, and the politics. But these 4 pillars stand on a foundation, and that foundation is education. And unfortunately, what has happened is there is very little thought that is being given to what education should be like. The basic character of education should change. We are right now talking more about how am I going to do remote teaching? How am I going to conduct examinations? Is examination necessary for students or not? I think apart from all this, what education needs to do is to make a student think. Are we making our students think? Are we making students use their mind in order to take decisions? Because that is the most important part. And this COVID-19 only gives me, in my opinion, very frank opinion, gives us only time to sit down and self-introspect. What is it that we need to change in this basic educational system? It is not about technology. It is not about Google Meets or Zooms or meetings or stuff like that, whether examinations happen or examinations don't happen, whether infrastructure exists or infrastructure doesn't exist. I think the way we create education content and the way we deliver this education content, I think is something that we all need to sit down upon and ponder over. My opening remarks.
Thank you, Nilesh. Thank you. And you preempted our next question. So, Umaji, would you like to unmute yourself and share your perspective? Yeah. It's about the opportunities for education that we're provided with now.
I'm a little shocked I was asked to come to join this. Okay, because I have my think about where we need to go. And what is thing on this? Can you hear me?
No, unfortunately, you're cutting out a little. Sorry, could you say that again?
No, my just thing is that this COVID-19 has probably given us an opportunity to sit down and do some thinking about what some ways we need to take that chance, take this opportunity and do something serious with this. And I think if we try and tackle too many problems all at the same time, okay, we might get lost in the whole mass of things. But suppose if we were to take 2 or 3 or 4 simple things that we can
Oh, Umaji, I think your connection is a little unstable. I'm wondering if you can hear me. Maybe you can find another connection, maybe on your mobile or something. We've lost you, I'm afraid. So just while Umaji comes...
Is it you or me?
Sorry, Umaji, I think your connection's a little unstable.
Mine, okay, so probably
maybe you could use the chat box to put some comments in so we can make sure your voice is heard.
Okay, all right. Don't worry, I have nothing.
Okay, thank you. So the next question, sort of you preempted, Nilesh, was really about how does learning need to change in Goa, or in India in general, but in Goa, to build better life skills, better employability, and better entrepreneurship for Goa's youth. So open up the floor to whoever would like to go first. What needs to change?
Should I start?
You can start. You naturally flowed into that at the end of your...
So I mean, this is something that we as people from education have been thinking about for quite some time. I mean, if you actually notice, a simple parameter like, say, a credit deposit ratio in a place like Goa is hardly about 30%. So it simply means that there is a lot of money that gets deposited into a bank account but is not withdrawn. You know, you have such a huge scope today for entrepreneurship, but do I really find Goans taking up entrepreneurship on this on a large scale? The answer is no. So I have a feeling that this whole thing has got something to do with the way the kids have got educated right from the beginning. So it's, you know, this whole concept of fear that the educational system instills into a student from the beginning of right from school, I think is something that's responsible in non-creation of so many entrepreneurs. So it's only those people who have been able to do away with these fears are the ones who have actually taken up to entrepreneurship. Yeah. So can educational system help in creating more entrepreneurs? The answer is yes, absolutely. I think the only way to do that is basically make education more liberal. Make education like a buffet. It's like I'm going for a wedding and I'm having a buffet. And this whole lavish buffet is laid in front of me. Let me get the chance to choose as a student. I mean, it is pathetic if somebody is going to, if someone goes for a marriage party and someone is told, okay, sit down on a table and eat what is served to you. I mean, that's going to be quite a problem. Do you make wrong choices? The answer is yes. Even in a buffet, I choose systems or I choose food that's not really good. Do I complain about it? The answer is no. I only better say, okay, I have made a wrong choice and I go on to make a better choice. Why can't education system be that way? Why can't somebody who is doing aeronautical engineering also do music? Why is it that a student who is trying to learn quantum physics not do art? I mean, I'm quite flabbergasted at all this situation that education is so regimented. Education is so compartmentalized, and education is so much like, you know, I serve you and you eat kind of a system. Whether you like that food, you don't like that food is not really considered. How will entrepreneurs grow? Yeah, it is more like somebody telling you do this and you do this. So we are creating more CPUs, we are creating more processors. So they follow only the command. They are not really made to create their own opportunities. And that's what educational system, in my opinion, needs to do right from the beginning.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, Shantanu, yes.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with, almost 100% agree with what Nilesh just said, because that's been a struggle for us as well. I mean, since we started in 2013, in the beginning, the questions during that period from parents, what will you do after this? We said our course is more entrepreneurial than a job-oriented course. And we want people to go out there, set up their own thing, and employ youngsters and other people. Now, that whole idea and seed has taken 7 years to be understood. And what's happened is, what I see over the last 7 years, my experience, that youngsters now who join not just our course, but otherwise also we've been doing a little bit of research, because we're doing a lot of the online programming, exactly what Nilesh was saying. We are serving a buffet. We are trying to tell them that here are options in front of you, and you choose what you want to do, and we will mentor you according to that, and not tell you what you should be doing. And that's exactly, I think, what Nilesh is trying to imply, and which is correct way of doing it, because at this point of time, the youth has started doing that on their own. What the youth has started doing is they are rejecting everything that is around. I have people who are engineers, bankers. They quit their jobs and come to do photography and a switch of a career, which in the beginning I used to be a little aghast. But what happens is that gives them a lot more joy of doing what they want to do, and they can still earn through it or live through it. Goa is ideally suited for such kind of people to come explore their possibilities for the future. And I think we should all encourage it and try and push it that way. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you. Thank you. Shilpa.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, it's a debate, and there's a wide spectrum about what education, what it is, what it can be. What I'm excited about is that the panel that I'm looking at, especially Shantanu and Nanta, who I know, it's people are creating alternative choices in Goa. Is my audio okay? Yeah. So I mean, at Paradise, I was trying to strike the balance between the two, right? Between the mainstream and the alternative. Why I married Soul with Cambridge, that's our pedagogy we use. Which Soul is there to open up, take them avoid discovery, enable them to have actually like go on an internal journey about what's interesting to them. Because really, school should be igniting the passion of a child so that they understand who they are, what they're interested in. It's just where on the spectrum do we fall? But the way I've managed it at Paradise is by making it as personalized as possible, so that children understand that this is their personal journey, that they're moving away from standardization. And also, we have picked the most exciting subjects you'll be pleased to hear, Nilesh, in Cambridge, who have been innovating on this course. So we have enterprise as one of our subjects. We have environmental management, we have digital literacy, we have global perspectives. We're using, trying to take the best creme de la creme of the mainstream, marry it to an alternative approach so that you can produce these self-thinking, self-led individuals. And the thing that's exciting for me, Joanna, is that Goa is such a hub for this activity. I mean, just in Nachinola, Aldona, Bastora, you know, we have got 3 amazing schools and or types of schools that are promoting different types of education. So I think it goes back to what Shantanu is saying, is that, you know, I think people who are bringing new educational forums and perspectives to the state should be encouraged and supported, because we could be the educational epicenter of India. Why not? We have that much creativity here. So yeah, I agree with you.
And actually, we're going to move on in our next question to what kind of support do these new forms of organization need. But before we do, Nandita, yes, I'd love to go to you.
I'd just like to add that in addition to what you said, Nilesh, I completely resonate with what you said. One of the things we look at very deeply is also the sense, the hierarchy of caste. And in India, we also need to look at that. So one of the small things that we do, but we address everybody by their first names. Because the moment you have a surname and you have Mrs. So-and-so or a Mr. So-and-so or Sir, whatever, your surname denotes which caste you are, and it already puts you in certain brackets. And I mean, it will take a few generations, I think, to kind of overcome this, but it's a start. So it's not only looking at the quality and the kinds of innovative things we can do, but I think we also need to be very aware of what kind of class and caste issues there are. For instance, if we teach, if a child wants to do woodworking, what is the response of the parent or the grandparent or the uncle and aunt? Acha, tum carpenter banna chahte ho? I mean, there is already such a kind of versus like, oh my God, you want to become an engineer? See the difference? So I think to build a bridge where you say whatever you choose to do is okay and is on par, and you can make that work for you. I think that needs to be added to the foundation, and we have to do a lot of work with the adults, not be it the parents or the grandparents or the uncles or aunts or friends, as much as we need to work with our children.
Thank you, Nandita. Umarji, how does education need to change?
I think Nandita probably hit the nail on the head about why I'm on this.
Maybe Umarji, if you switch your video off,
grapple with.
Maybe they will get better bandwidth.
Switch the video off, okay.
Yeah, sorry, we just want to keep saying.
Anyway, so
yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So the issue is right now, if we don't use this opportunity to do something meaningful, we would have lost this chance, because COVID-19 has given now use this opportunity to do something. And I think if we do something too wide and too diverse, we might lose this opportunity because of bandwidth issues. Okay, that's the point that I'm trying to make. That let's keep our attempts at narrow, and let's see if we can actually achieve these goals that we're talking about. Okay, one of the things that Shantanu is talking about. Okay, now we have now Shantanu has created a hub here for this. Now, what can this thing that needs to be at that? Okay, so to try and mix up that with infrastructure, with employment opportunities and all the other things that we need, that you will do, will make this conversation far too global, and therefore I don't think you'll achieve too much. So I like what Shantanu is doing. Okay, so that the focus is photography. Okay, what is the bandwidth that can be built up on this photography, on photography, or what Nandita is doing. Okay, so these are things that we need to focus in on, because this is where the opportunity will come. Okay, to try and bring in all the other elements at this stage may not be such a good idea.
Thank you, Amaji, for encouraging us to keep focused. So I'd just like to put another question to you before we go to the questions from the audience. But you talked about, you know, the idea of what is an enabling environment for learning institutions and bodies and enterprises to set up in Goa, and there was talk about types of permissions and clearances, etc. But, you know, I'd just love to hear, and not in any order, and if you don't have anything to add, then also you don't need to say anything, but, you know, what's really needed to help Goa become a learning hub for the 21st century? What would you like to see happen to make that a sort of easier?
Yeah, so again, like if it's okay, I'll just say something on this. Yeah, I agree. I think, you know, Goa becoming an educational hub is the most important thing, because I think that also would mean that you're creating more employment opportunities for Goans. So then you are kind of looking inward and localizing your employment opportunities, which is a very nice thing to look at, because the literacy rates in Goa are high. People, as everyone said, is very creative. We as a place is most sought after tourist destination. So having Goa or making Goa an educational hub is the most important thing, because that's what we call as an educational tourism, for instance. Yeah. But then on that count, I would tend to just deviate from what Mr. Chougule said. He's actually a thespian from the educational and of Goa, and so actually me deviating from what he says is not very correct. But I would just tend to kind of deviate a bit in saying, like, for example, today we are having a webinar and I had a problem logging in. Mr. Chougule himself had a problem logging in. So you have a issue with technology and the bandwidth. You have a problem at smallest of the fraction where there's politicization of an issue. So, so you had South Goa, which would have otherwise hosted NIT, IIT, and even IIMs, but today, you know, they lose an opportunity because of politics. So I think in general, if I'm going to talk about creating a good environment and making Goa a good educational hub, I think I need to give it a support system. Just merely passing laws of getting private universities would not really help, but I think you need to also give some sort of a conducive environment as a government. Thanks.
Yeah. So can I come in on that one? Continue on what Nilesh said?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so exactly that. See, our experience has been that we've asked for only three things. If you want us to put it up, we're not asking for money, we're not asking for land, but just give us clearances and a couple of things that are not within our control, which is electricity, straight supply, good supply of electricity, and internet. Roads, by and large, are very decent in Goa. Water supply is decent in Goa, so we won't complain about that. But the complaint is about internet and electricity access, because without internet, you cannot be a global player sitting in Goa. Secondly, the concept that I've been floating for the last 6 or 7 years is calling Goa. That's what I've been discussing with the ministry at some point, but I've given up because exactly for that reason, because bureaucracy and politics has ruined this whole concept. It's I've called it a creative global village. What it means is all sorts of people who think creatively, I'm saying, want to come here, ideate, share ideas, and then move on from there. Either stay in Goa and work on it, or you can go elsewhere and use those ideas. I'm not talking just photography and filmmaking. I'm talking about every aspect of it. It could be performing arts, it could be literature, it could be physics, as quantum physics, as Nilesh was saying. All this is creative processes, needs creative processes. Now, if there's a hub like that, let's call it the kind of Boston of India or Boston of the East, where the educational hub can then thrive. And as I said, there are superb and very positive repercussions on the whole society as such, because what happens is your economy will be a more stable economy, because there will be students coming for a longer period and not like tourists coming and messing up the place in 15 days, or the mining activity which is digging up your hills. So I'm saying that these are things that are going to help. If so, the only two things that we require from the government is one, all these two infrastructural issues and clearances in one go. Because I waited for 5 years. They've been saying you can buy orchard land for cheap and we'll convert it for educational purposes. No one is doing it. I tried it. I had lawyers and everyone. We've spent money getting the right land. The government has not done anything.
Thank you. So I've clocked those clearances. Nandita, thank you, Shantanu.
Yep.
Yeah, Shantanu, I agree with you with that with regards to the government. And the other thing I would add to that basket is, the openness to accept some new ideas and ways of doing things, which would really help. I think we also need to look at what is Goa's USP. I mean, with regards to education, I would look at sports, at the environment studies, at cultural and historical studies, and farming. I mean, if you look at these four, a lot of these, we don't even need the infrastructure in terms of internet and broadband. In whatever we have, we can manage with. But the fact is, Goa does have some of the leading people from this country with regards to, let's say, organic farming, permaculture, architecture, the arts. Why are we not kind of supporting and building on this USP? I mean, we've already got so many public sports spaces. So to connect that, and I know there's some sports academies already there, but it's just geared towards football. But if you looked at it from a wider perspective and had a sports a school or schools having sports academies and also with the academic component thrown in, people would move here, people who would be then invested, as Shantanu said, in promoting Goa sustainably. And then you're not dependent on a mining sort of a degrading, I'm sorry, but I think sort of an enterprise for Goa, but it's far more sustainable also.
Thanks, Nandita. And
Joanna, I'm not sure if it's okay, but can I just react to what Nandita just said? Or do we wait?
Yes, what I'd love is I'm just conscious
right.
that we haven't heard this back from Umaji, and we do need to get questions from Q&A. Could I ask you to just hold that for a moment, Nilesh, if that's okay?
Sure.
And we'll just quickly go to Umaji, then we'll go to the questions, and then we'll come back to that response.
Okay. Let me try and reiterate what I'm trying to say very simply. It seems to me that I used to run a primary school, okay? Now this primary school was stopped for the fact that for this last 2 months or so. And as a result of this, I am now finding that there are some of our teachers who have now started classes on WhatsApp, okay? Now, this is remarkable for me. Teachers who maybe about 5-6 years ago, refused to assume that technology is available for classrooms, are now fully absorbed into taking their classes forward in terms of what they have to teach and what they wish their children to learn. And I think this is, for me, the big takeaway for this. I take Mr. Shantanu's idea and Mr. Nilesh's, I should call him Mr. Nilesh now. Okay, Mr. Nilesh's idea that you need that big idea, but I'm not so sure that in things that are actually happening on the ground, right? Whether those big ideas are necessary, but rather the implementation, as Shantanu was saying, implementation of these small ideas and actually taking those small ideas forward to their fruition. So I think in some ways, for me, our and the bureaucrats to change and all of that, I don't think that's good. That's going to be at least in my lifetime. Okay, I'm sure Nandita's
So
lifetime it will
thank
happen, right?
Thank you again for that reminder to take the small ideas forward and stay focused. I'm definitely getting the point here, which is great. So I just want to go now to the questions that have been posed by some of the audience members. So I'm just going to hand over to Mayank, who's been monitoring those, and he'll just suggest a few.
Thank you, Joanna. Hi guys, this is Mayank. So I'll take this question from Arjun Srinivasan. What Arjun is asking is, education as it stands today is a system of standardizing and conditioning human expression and thought. To break away from the system, shouldn't the whole concept of education as a business stop? I would like to start with Nilesh, because certainly postgraduate education is primarily profit-minded. So, and there's a value in making it as a business. So Nilesh, can you please answer? And I would request everybody to stick to a minute or minute and a half, please.
Yeah, so thank you very much. I think, unfortunately, since I teach in a business school, I would tend to kind of support this idea of making profits. I don't understand why people should not be making money. All we are looking at is this money ethical? Okay, which is what we talk about in terms of sustainability. Now, if you are looking out for a fly-by-night kind of guys, and you're going to just come start something for a night and then, you know, make money and walk away, yes, I'm against it. But I think if I'm doing something nice and if I'm making money out of it, I don't see a reason why I should actually not be doing it, because at the end of the day, I'm creating capital and I'm creating wealth for the society. And more importantly, in education, I'm saying this, and I'm saying this as a teacher and a very archaic person who has been in education field in comparison to most of these young panelists. So I've been in this field for much longer than this. So in spite of being traditional teacher, I still believe that making money is not a very bad thing. The method of making money is bad. And therefore, I believe that why should I not consider this to be like business? It's in business, for example, if you look at a simple, plain corporate life, you would have people who would be incentivized for thinking out of the box. So why not in education? I need people who would be made to think out of the box.
Thanks, Nilesh. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll go to Shilpa next.
So
Shilpa, you're on mute. Yeah, go ahead.
That's a question from one of my teachers, I think, Arjun. So, you know, we are not standardizing education at Paradise. We are exploring new strategies of education as well. I think something that's really emerging out of this conversation for me is that, as Nandita said, like, we shouldn't be seen, if you are doing something innovative in education, as we all are, we shouldn't be on the outskirts of society, especially in Goa. We should be brought into the innermost folds of this. And there should be a platform or some sort of avenue whereby we have a voice, and the kind of the cultural shift of Goa moves towards having this very broad landscape of educational voices. Because, you know, it's not one size fits all. There's many different approaches. We should be allowed to innovate and create in these areas. And I think it would be exciting, going back to a previous question that Joanna said, is that if in Goa we could bring all these voices together, if we could do more collaboration with schools, I mean, it would be great. Then we could be, you know, swapping ideas about farming in different kinds of schools, or soul in different kinds of schools, or bringing photography in. You know, I think right now what's happening, because we're slightly in survival mode, is that we're all separate pockets. And what's great about this forum is I can see an amazing opportunity for us all to be working together and talking together and finding ways to, like, disseminate our ideas amongst each other. And then we kind of have a voice together, right? Then we can create this amazing educational platform for everyone.
Thank you, Shilpa. Can I have Umaji next?
For me, look, I agree. I agree with what Shilpa is saying. Okay, the issue that you come with is, in something like this, being an educational hub doesn't come overnight. Okay, it's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of time and a lot of people to come together to do this. I am right now focusing on the issue that you create an environment in which we can take some of the pause that we've got to try and see how we can add value to what and who we are teaching. Okay. But just by the way, I am not in mining. Okay.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Meaning, the family is in mining, but I don't personally do mining. Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Somaji. I'll have Nandita next, and then Shantanu after that.
Mayank. I feel I agree with the person who's asked this question. I feel, having worked in both for-profit and not-for-profit educational spaces, I do believe that especially primary, when I say primary, I say up to the 10th or to 12th grade, should not be for profit. Because I feel it takes away from the child. If profit becomes a motive, then there's investors to respond to. There is different other stakeholders, and it kind of takes away the focus from the child. I'm not saying that there are not great educational spaces that are providing fantastic education for children like Shilpa Space, but more often than not, when profit is there, it takes away from the child. And a lot of emphasis is then, if you go to different spaces, given on infrastructure, not human resources. Why is a primary school teacher paid less than a high school teacher, when the primary school teacher is actually spending the most amount of time with a young mind that is unconditioned? So, you know, there's somewhere the scales are kind of warped. But that does not mean that a not-for-profit should run kind of ad hoc. I would bring the best practices of a corporate setup into an educational space too, so that it's efficient, there's enough space for innovation, there is enough space for people to speak up, for professional development, which does not happen when there is no money for it. But be sustainable, but not profit.
Okay, Nandita, Shantanu, if you can come on, and then there's one amazing question at the end. I would like to take it. Shantanu, if you can keep it brief, please.
Okay, I'm against free education, and I think that's a failed idea. The socialistic approach to education is a failed idea. You see what's happened to India right now with the free education. And remember, when something is free, you don't have any, regard for it. And okay, I agree with Nandita. They're up to the junior schools. There should be some kind of better teachers with better. But then, who's going to bail them out financially? As far as postgrad, which we come in, we are doing. I'll be honest and blatant about it. We are doing it. We're selling knowledge. We're selling knowledge to people who want to make money out of that knowledge. So there is no question of it being socialistic and free and all. It doesn't work. It's not worked in India. It will not work in the future. Look at America. America is sponging off close to $4 billion a year in just tuition fees from India. Forget about the other places. So, I mean, why are we doing that? That money is all going out because we can't produce and we cannot match that thing. So we need money to run it. And we need money to do the right things.
Thank you, Shantanu. So the last question, this is an amazing question. I think it's a nice segue for Joanna to then wrap it up. So Ria Sen is asking, can you list 2 things that you feel should change in education after COVID? How should education evolve? So quickly, 30 seconds per panelist. Shantanu, if you're on the mic, you go ahead. 2 things from you.
Well, I'm saying again and again, you've got to bring in the creative aspect of thinking. Our preamble is you don't click a picture, you think a picture. And everything needs thinking, whether it's mathematics or whether it's any subject. So creative thinking is the only answer to everything. And that's what the world is moving towards, by the way. I mean, you can see people working anywhere in the world, they're talking creatively and creativity.
Okay. So Maji, can I go next?
Okay.
Yes.
My thing is, since my focus is on schools and colleges, by 2 things that I would like to bring in a lot more of is the role of technology in all of this. And for this, what Shantanu was saying electricity, internet, okay, perhaps even roads, okay. All of those things are probably the things that I would like to see. I would like to add into this.
Sure. Thank you. Shilpa, you can go next.
Yeah, I was trying to think of two. I just have one big one, and that is I would love for the assessment system to be totally changed in education, exam-based. I think that would liberate a lot of potential children, educators, because it's not just children burnt out by exams, it's also educators, right? And I see phenomenal talent in my school get so exhausted with the examination. However, I think we can bring in forms of assessment, and I think we can open up doors for kids to bring their genuine passions to school, and to explore who they are and their ideas and future careers. Actually, I think we should start now. I would love to invent the wheel again.
Okay. So last quick, Nilesh, can we go on? Nilesh?
So if I could take this quickly, number one, I'm a very traditional teacher, so I very strongly believe that technology and all is great, but I very strongly believe that the student-teacher interaction, physical interaction is a must, especially at the primary kind of level. I really can't be teaching people on Zoom at 4th standard and 5th standard, something that probably my daughters are going through right now in this lockdown period. So
Nilesh, we're really running out of time, just quickly, please.
Yeah. So number one is being a traditional teacher and convert your entire education system from learning to student-centered from teacher-centered. Thank you.
Okay. Nandita, quick word from you, and then we'll pass it on to Joanna to close the webinar.
Parents, stop being fearful. 10th and 12th exams are not the end of the world.
Okay. Thank you, Nandita. Joanna, on to you to close out the session and any final words.
So thank you, everybody. I think just in terms of summary, what I see is that there is the potential in Goa for Goa to become a kind of Boston of the East in terms of creating this learning hub, and that we can draw on the rich melting pot of creative professionals and different type of alternative vocations that are anyway finding themselves and individuals finding themselves in Goa. But what's needed from the government is better infrastructure in terms of internet, power, clearances, and perhaps a space for dialogue around innovation in education. And that what some of these institutions and bodies need to sort of focus is on adding value to the student through helping them to really learn how to think, and a sort of self-directed personal buffet style of learning, so that they can really focus on what they're passionate about and build up from there. So thank you for everybody. There's lots there. There's an invitation also for anyone who'd like, from the participants watching today and also from the panelists. We're going to shift over to a different platform, a Zoom meeting, so that we can have some breakout groups to really think through. Maybe there's some people in the audience who have some ideas they want to share and sort of take these conversations further, because obviously we haven't had time for that today. Also, a big thank you to each and every one of the panelists here. It's been a great contribution, and we've built up quite a picture. It's interesting to see where there's alignment. There's quite a lot of alignment, actually. And also just to let you know that there are 2 more webinars taking place tomorrow and the following day. Oh, so the one tomorrow is on, excuse me, health and wellness at 4 p.m. and then the following day is on creative services. And please do go, the link to the breakout groups has just been posted, but please also go onto the Ideas for Go website to register for those webinars, and also to check out some of the amazing ideas that have been posted there, vote on them, and contribute yourself. So a big warm thank you to everybody and to the Ideas for Goa team, and hopefully see you in the other meeting shortly.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot for having us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Summed up, Joanna, by the way. Brilliant. Summed up.